Over to you, Suze.
Thanks very much, Becky. Welcome everyone to the first of 3 webinars this week as part of Shared Lives Plus's Shared Lives Week webinar series. We're really pleased today to be talking about a key topic for us, which is around establishing, growing and diversifying shared lives. So our webinar today is really all about insights and learning from the last year in terms of developing shared lives. And I'm joined by my colleague Sophie Hargreaves from our strategic advice and development team. And that team is the team that helps provide local support to shared life schemes and councils across the country to help them with developing shared lives. And I'm also really happy to say that we're joined by some colleagues from across the country as well. So we've got Amy Rutherford and Gareth Bishop from Doncaster Council, alongside Tom Pick from their commission scheme Avalon. And we also have Wayne Seaman from Birmingham City Council as well. And towards the end of today's webinar, they're going to be sharing some examples and experiences of developing shared lives this year as part of their accelerating reform funded projects as well. So we've got some slides to run through with you today. We're also going to be attempting to launch some polls for you throughout the session as well. So look out for those. They'll be asking for your kind of feedback and input. And you should also see a chat function on your screen as well. So if you do have any questions for myself or the group here today presenting throughout today's session, then please do put your questions in the chat, and my colleague Sophie is going to be trying to pick those up and pull out any key themes that we can come back to towards the end of today's session as well. So please do engage as much as you can through that chat function, any comments, any learning that you want to share with other colleagues who are also on the call. Because this is a webinar, you won't be able to share your sound or video unless we give you permission to do so. So please do use that chat function if you would like to. As I mentioned, this is the first of 3 webinars. So we've got another webinar happening tomorrow, which is being led by the Shared Lives Plus membership team, all about behind the scenes of Shared Lives Plus membership. So take a look at that and sign up to that. And on Thursday, we've got a session around celebrating shared lives, and that's going to be led by our CEO, Ewan King, and also going to have a few of our Shared Lives Plus ambassadors attending as well. So that'll be a fantastic session. So please do sign up to that as well. So our topic for today, as I said, is around developing shared lives. And I wanted to just start with a bit of a preface around why develop shared lives. I think most people can see that know about shared lives, knows the benefits of that, those that are involved in it day in and day out. But some of those benefits and some of those reasons for developing shared lives, I don't think are always as well known within the broader social care sector and beyond. So I wanted to start there to begin with. So why develop shared lives? We commonly know that shared lives produces good quality of outcomes. It's relational, it's community-based. CQC rates shared lives as one of the best forms of social care support out there as well. And ADAS as well, 9 out of 10 directors of ADAS say that they believe an increase in shared lives in their local area would have a significant impact on people's outcomes. So quality of outcomes is a key area for why we develop shared lives. It also provides a cost-effective offer for local people as well. So Shared Lives Plus has done a lot of research in this space over the last couple of years around the cost benefit of shared lives. And we produced a paper in this last year that you may have seen called Better Outcomes for Less, which outlined that shared lives can save between £12,000 and £26,000 per person per year for an adult with a learning disability, which is some fantastic figures. And we've also been doing some further analysis on other areas of support, say supporting someone who may need help with their mental health, or someone who is moving on from children's services and adult care, and some of the cost effectiveness in those particular spaces as well. So watch this space for more analysis to come this year from the cost effective side as well. Shared Lives is very much local government backed. So you may have seen this year that Partners for Care and Health, who are the partnership of the Local Government Association, the LGA, and the Association for Directors of Adult Social Services, ADAS, that they're a partnership called Partners in Care and Health. And they commissioned Shared Lives Plus to develop some guidance this year around developing the building blocks for growing shared lives and developing shared lives. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later on. But it's very much backed and supported by local government. And there's a keen kind of aspiration for it to grow and develop further. It's also very much backed, I think, by central government as well. Both the previous Conservative government outlined and highlighted shared lives within their People at the Heart of Care white paper. And this current Labour government has enshrined shared lives as having home first principles that enable people to live independently for longer. And there's also a growing interest from the Department for Education as well. We've had some colleagues from the Department of Education visiting shared life schemes over the last couple of months, which has been fantastic. And they've been getting a better sense of how shared lives could be a really good option for young people as they move into adulthood as well. Of course, we know that there are some sector barriers to development. So things like financial pressures on services, these are, obviously things that everyone knows about very well who works in social care at the moment. And Shared Lives does require some upfront investment and capacity to be able to grow, either in terms of scheme staffing or in terms of promotion and marketing to grow awareness of shared lives within the local area or across councils and local systems, as well as in terms of actual promotion to support shared lives care recruitment as well. Time pressures are obviously a big sector barrier at the moment. And again, shared lives requires investment of time, including again in terms of recruitment and onboarding of new shared lives carers, in terms of the process of matching carers and supported people as well. That can take time, but it is the key quality element of the model. And so it's really, really important to try and protect that as much as we can. And lack of awareness is something that I hear about probably week in, week out in my role in Shared Lives Plus from schemes in local areas, is that people just don't know about shared lives enough. They don't know what the model is, or if they do, they maybe have some misunderstandings or some myths about what that model is all about. So again, another sector barrier, but one I think is that we can work on to try and overcome. Within Shared Lives Plus, we have kind of terminology, or we have kind of categorized the development of shared lives into three key areas that we see. So either areas are trying to establish a shared life scheme where one doesn't exist. They're trying to grow a scheme that's maybe started off, it may be small, and there's a real opportunity to try and grow and expand the scale and size of it. Or a scheme may be kind of quite well established, may have quite a lot of arrangements, but are really looking to diversify who it supports. So in terms of people at different points or stages of their life, or with different care and support needs as well. So what does this actually look like on the ground then? There are around 150 shared life schemes across the country in the UK. But there's still quite a number of areas where there is no shared lives option for local people. So there's still a lot of opportunity for local areas to be able to grow and establish shared lives. And I know a lot of areas this year used Accelerating Reform Fund grants in order to help support that. But what does that look like on the ground? I think quite often it involves looking at what the kind of local options and potential is for growing shared lives and really trying to understand what the benefits could be. That can help inform developing an evidence and cost-based case to actually secure the investment that's needed to get a scheme established, whether that be the scheme kind of operations itself or in terms of the recruitment of shared lives carers. and the onboarding and training of them. It could also be about looking at different commissioning options and developing local commissioning specifications as well. There are different ways that Shared Lives is delivered across the UK. Some are delivered provided in-house within councils, and some are provided externally through independent charitable providers like our colleagues from Avalon here today as well. And some of that as well really just looks at, well, what are those key operational steps that we actually need to take to get a scheme off the ground? You know, once we've got perhaps a team in place or a commission service in place, what do those key operational steps look like from the very ground up when it comes to establishing Shared Lives? The next area in terms of growing Shared Lives, when we look at some of the figures for developing Shared Lives, it really is ripe for growth right across the country. Currently, when we look at some of the statistics, it currently only equates to around 1% of adult social care provision, certainly across England anyway. And that those numbers are increasing year on year within our state of the sector, and we're hoping to see an increase in the number of supported people and the number of Shared Lives carers across the UK this year when we look at our state of the sector results when they're finalised. But there is still a lot of room for growth within Shared Lives right across the country. So again, what does that look like on the ground? Quite often it involves looking at how we can develop strategic and joined up ways of working, really bringing local leaders together to put plans in place to support and drive growth in Shared Lives. It could look at actually what are some of the partnerships and professional working that needs to be put in place in order to grow Shared Lives. So whether that's around partnership working between Shared Lives schemes and other adult social care operational teams or commissioning, or whether that be kind of broader system partners as well, such as health colleagues, community voluntary sector, etc. It's also really, I think, about developing knowledgeable and skilled social workers who really understand what Shared Lives is all about. They understand the processes and steps behind the model in order to kind of utilise Shared Lives as much as they can, and that they champion it as a kind of a really positive offer within their local area as much as possible. Another aspect I think is also as well just looking at the actual operations of the Shared Lives scheme. So what are its practices and processes like when it comes to kind of picking up Shared Lives referrals or doing that matching process or monitoring Shared Lives arrangements. So there's space, I think, in there within the actual team operations that could help achieve growth if they're enhanced in different ways. And then I think the other area is quite critically going to be around Shared Lives carers, which is not going to be surprising to most. I think making sure that there's a robust and attractive an offer to Shared Lives carers is really, really key, both to retain current carers that you have. So whether that be in terms of the fees that they're paid for different arrangement types, or in terms of receiving adequate respite as Shared Lives carers. It's a really critical element, I think, to attracting new people into the role and position. And finally, I think having quite a strategic approach to actual Shared Lives care recruitment and awareness raising is key as well. And this needs to be something that's kind of done on an ongoing basis as well. And then finally, in terms of diversifying Shared Lives. So we've got some stats on there from last year's State of the Sector in terms of some of the top areas of kind of representation, I guess, of people supported within Shared Lives across the country. And it still continues to be the case that adults with a learning disability are of the highest proportion of individuals that are supported in Shared Lives, but that this is starting to kind of shift and grow, and there is a real increasing interest, I think, in actually the flexibility of Shared Lives as a model and how it could support people at different points in their life with different care and support needs. I think there's some interesting things that can be done on the ground to help with supporting that. I think having a really clear and shared vision of what that looks like is key. with everyone that would be involved. So whether that be the scheme itself, with strategic colleagues, with commissioning, with any local partners that may need to help with developing or diversifying shared lives in this space. So, for example, if the ambition is to diversify to support more people with mental ill health, then there's obvious kind of local partnerships that would need to be made with NHS colleagues or community health colleagues and teams in order to support the development of that. And that kind of touches on that broader partnership working in agreements. And in some cases, that could be kind of working through and considering what the funding of that arrangement might look like, who might fund what, and putting those kind of agreements in place up front, I think is quite important where that's needed. I think identifying areas where more support might be needed to carers through training or either through kind of higher bandings of fees to support them in working with individuals that might need different types of care and support. So whether that be around training around mental health diagnoses, or in terms of supporting someone who might be living with dementia, for example, or who may have experienced trauma. So really thinking about how we can bolster our shared lives carers so that they can best support people as much as possible. I think another element is really thinking about what that pathway would actually look like into shared lives if someone, if you're looking to diversify the scheme and the local offer, really. So, for example, taking the example of mental health, what would that process actually look like, or that pathway look like for someone moving into shared lives? And there's a key task, I think, for colleagues at a local area to work together to map that out and understand what that looks like, and agree that across professionals and across teams in order to make that happen. And then I think another thing is just really around increased referrals and local awareness raising. So, colleagues from, for example, mental health teams or, local dementia kind of voluntary organisations or support organisations need to know that shared lives is an option for them locally. And so generating awareness and understanding with those groups is really, really key in order to drive some of that diversification that you might be looking for. And similarly, if you're looking to attract carers with maybe particular existing skills around particular areas of care and support, particular interests, and really thinking about how your recruitment messaging and language can be used and tailored to attract perhaps a different or new type of shared lives carer that could fit within the space that you're trying to diversify in as well. So as I said, we're commissioned this year by Partners in Care and Health, which is the partnership of Local Government Association and ADAS, to develop some new guidance, which was really, really exciting. This guidance was focused around developing 6 building blocks for growing and developing a robust shared lives offer. This was more focused on this piece of guidance was aimed at developing shared lives for adults with a learning disability. However, I think there is a lot of applicable information within this guidance that could be applied to all sorts of areas of growing, developing shared lives too across the board. This guidance has 6 key building blocks that you'll see on the screen here, which I think are a really helpful breakdown of the key areas that we need to think about when we're talking about developing shared lives within a local area. And I'm just going to run through each of those just to give a bit more information on them now. So the first one is joined up working with local leaders, and that's really thinking about what's your clear strategic vision for shared lives in the local area? Is that being clearly communicated? Are there strategic agreements in place between teams to enable growth and development, whether that be across children's and adult services, for example, to support transitions into shared lives as people move into adulthood, or across other partnerships and teams? Is there the investment, adequate investment there to actually support the development of shared lives within the local area, whether that be in terms of team capacity or in terms of investment to support promotion and awareness raising and the recruitment of shared lives carers, who are obviously fundamental to the development of the offer. And to strategic colleagues really champion shared lives in the local space. What are they doing to try and get the word out there and try and build a profile for shared lives in that local area too? The second building blocks around developing effective partnerships. So really we're thinking about, are all the people that need to be involved within the local area in order to support what your shared lives growth ambition is, and what that development ambition is. If you've got all the right people around the table, are the systems and processes in place between professionals and teams and organizations to help facilitate and enable that? And how is actually partnership working, happening with people who are being supported within shared lives, with families and carers more broadly. So really thinking about that co-production element as well. The third area is really looking at social workers who are familiar with shared lives approaches. So really ensuring that shared lives is consistently highlighted as a key option, linking it to any existing social work practice frameworks or guidance to help embed shared lives in a way that feels familiar to social workers locally. Perhaps that could be included within inductions or training for social workers as well. So really making sure that social work teams and social care professionals have the tools and knowledge around shared lives needed in order to be able to adequately utilize it and support the development by sending appropriate referrals into the local shared life scheme. Then the scheme itself, obviously it being as high performing and effective as possible is key. So that's very much thinking about kind of key processes and systems, ways of working to make team operations, I think, as efficient and effective as possible. And then in terms of well-supported shared lives carers, so again, thinking about those, whether shared lives carers are paid adequate fees, whether they have right respite, whether they're being provided with access to suitable training and support in order to develop in their role. And finally, in terms of ongoing shared lives care recruitment. So this being an ongoing area of activity, I think is quite key for shared lives development within any area. I'm sure it's kind of quite front and center of most schemes' minds most of the time, because there is a natural attrition when it comes to shared lives carers within local areas. And so it is important that there is an ongoing effort made in order to keep recruiting new carers into the local pool as such. So we've now got time for our first poll, which I'm just going to set up and get shared on the screen. But we've got 3 polls for you today. The first poll is about, we're really keen to know what areas of shared lives development have you been focusing on this year? What have you been looking at? And I'm just going to launch that poll now. And you should be able to select as many options as you want on that poll in answer to that question. So what areas of shared lives development did you focus on the last year? Did you establish a scheme? Were you focused around developing a strategic vision? Were you securing additional investment to grow? Were you really working on that partnership working? Were you really working in terms of trying to increase social workers' understanding, improving your scheme practices, processes, or looking at the shared lives care offer or recruitment side as well? So we've got lots of answers coming in, which is good. I'm just going to let a few more come in and then I can start to show results. Quite a varied mix of responses in terms of what areas have been focusing on. I think it's probably no surprise to anyone that I think the highest option is shared lives care recruitment and promotion. always seems to be a solid area of focus for schemes, unsurprisingly. Let me see if we're going to have any more. Okay, I think that's us. So I'm just going to share the results on the screen, which hopefully you should be able to see now, which I think shows that there's quite a clear focus around increasing social workers' understanding and awareness, improving scheme practices and processes, and in terms of shared lives care, recruitment and promotion. Those are the top three areas we're focused on this year. And again, that's not surprising because I think that those are kind of the three top areas that most schemes kind of should be looking at when it comes to developing shared lives as well. Okay, I'll stop sharing that. Thank you for that. Okay. So next of all, I wanted just to share a bit of an update on some of the exciting things that have been happening in terms of shared lives development across the country this year. Bit of a whistle stop quick tour. Um, so we've got some examples on the slide here in terms of what's been going on. So in the top left-hand corner, we've got the Accelerating Reform Fund, which I've mentioned throughout today's session, and I'm going to give a bit more detailed information on a little bit later on in the webinar, but essentially is a DHSC, or Department for Health and Social Care, grant funding opportunity around funding innovation projects this year. And there's been quite a lot of areas that have chosen to focus on shared lives and using that investment grant to focus on developing shared lives, which is fantastic. But I'll touch a bit more on that later. As I said, there's been the publishing of the new Shared Lives Plus and LGA DAS guidance around developing shared lives for people with a learning disability, which again, I think is a really fantastic document and paper, which helps summarize not just those 6 building blocks, but also really kind of describes quite clearly at the outset of the guidance the fundamentals of the shared lives model, what it is, and why it's important to try and develop and grow shared lives within the local area. So a really, really helpful piece of guidance there. As I said, there's been a lot of growth, a lot of establishing, growing and diversifying shared lives across different parts of the country. And we've got some colleagues here today who are going to be talking us through some of their experiences of what's happened in developing in their local area today, which is really exciting. But there's also been some larger scale national programs underway and getting started as well, which have been around focusing and developing shared lives in particular areas. So we are now year 1 into our National Care Levers program, which is really exciting. So this is a 2-year pilot program that Shared Lives Plus are running. We're working with over 30 local areas across the UK, helping them to put in the kind of levers and areas and processes and steps really to support more young people who are care experienced and to be able to move into shared lives in early younger adulthood as well. There's some great evaluation and learning that's coming out of that towards the end of this first year, which should be published soon. But a really exciting developing and growing area for shared lives, which is only set to continue over the coming year as well. So watch this space on that program because there's lots more to come. And Shared Lives Plus are also launching a national program around supporting people who are living with dementia and their families, and that program is called Live More. And it's a very interesting program, which is actually thinking and trying to focus around shared lives support once someone's had a diagnosis of dementia, but prior to them being eligible for Care Act assessment and support through that through kind of Care Act eligibility. So it's really an early intervention program that we'll be running. We're looking to work with local sites across the country to help pilot and support a small number of people who are living with dementia through day support primarily in this space. And we'll be working with Greater Manchester as well as a number of other areas this year to help test this early intervention shared life support for people with dementia and their families. So again, watch this space. It's a very exciting programme coming up. There's also been lots of development across the UK as well. So within Northern Ireland, we have a really growing and expanding innovative service delivered by AgeNI, which is a shared lives service for older people, 65 plus or 65 over, to support them with shared lives day support, giving them the opportunity to kind of develop new friendships and relationships with shared lives carers, and to engage with their community as well. That's been really increasingly growing in scale this year, which is fantastic. And it's really starting to have some positive results for people that are involved in that, helping them to make meaningful social connections, helping to reduce isolation and loneliness, and really providing a bit of comfort and reassurance to families and carers of people that are being supported as well, which is brilliant. In Scotland, we've got quite a few exciting things going on in terms of quite a number of local areas are looking to develop shared lives, where there isn't currently a shared life scheme on offer, which is exciting. We also have quite a few areas that are keen to develop shared lives support for parents with a learning disability, which is a really exciting innovation area that Shared Lives Plus did a development program on a number of years back. But it's great to see that there's still an interest in trying to develop that option for people locally within Scotland. And we also in Shared Lives Plus ran an event with colleagues from across Scotland last week, which was really looking to help develop a bit of a vision and approach to developing shared lives in Scotland specifically, which was exciting as well. So there'll be more that comes out from that soon too. And finally, in Wales, Shared Lives continuing to develop, and their kind of innovative Shared Lives mental health service that's being delivered in partnership with the local health board in South Wales is growing from strength to strength. Do check it out if you haven't heard about it. But they're providing crisis support, an alternative option to kind of hospital stays, and to help facilitate early discharge for people from hospital where they don't quite need to be there, but perhaps going home it's too soon for that as well. So do check that scheme out if you haven't heard about that, and that's an area of interest of development that you'd be keen to look at in your local area. And finally, I'm just going to hand over to my colleague Sophie, who's going to talk to you a little bit about our Shared Lives Plus ambassadors and some of the really exciting work that they do in helping to develop shared lives.
Thanks, Susie. Yeah, hi. So, I mean, some of you, I think, might have even attended some bits that other ambassadors have done before. But really, yeah, we just kind of wanted to highlight this again because they've been obviously doing some really great work. So some of you might have come along to the session last year about making voting accessible. And we actually, one of our ambassadors co-produced some resources with My Vote, My Voice. I've just included a bit of a snapshot here. Also, our ambassadors have designed and co-produced training for everyone at Shared Lives Plus, which all of our colleagues attended. And I've just kind of included a bit of a list on the side, our ambassadors have been involved in different strategic advice projects as well. So again, one of our ambassadors has co-run sessions with people supported in the service to get feedback around their thoughts and experiences of shared lives. Our ambassadors have been involved in our interview panels at Shared Lives Plus. As kind of standard, we run bi-monthly ambassador meetings because obviously just kind of keep kind of conversation going around any kind of work opportunities that are coming up, any bits that they're involved in, because our ambassadors like do like heaps as well, like outside of Shared Lives Plus. Like one of our ambassadors does a lot of work with nurses in training, for instance. Um, One of our ambassadors works at PSS, for instance. So our ambassadors are like pretty busy generally in like all the work they do. So yeah, that's kind of just a bit of a top line of what ambassadors do, but we're always kind of like looking to get them involved in more things we do, like kind of in terms of like co-production and things like that. It's always like an ongoing thing, as you know. But yeah, and also just, it is co-production week next week, and one of our ambassadors is going to be running a session with myself around co-production, just kind of talking about how you can really make it work for people that are supported in shared lives. So yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sophie. Yeah, and I think just building on what you were saying there as well, I think, you know, the ambassadors are such a fantastic team and have a real range of skills and experience. So if you are looking to do some co-production work within your local area, then please do reach out to us, because they could be interested in working with you in the local area to support what you're trying to do. So okay. Okay, so next poll I'm going to launch. Now this question is going to be quite similar to the last one, but what I really want to know is not last question was about what you've been kind of focused on, but what I'm keen to hear about now within this poll is, what do you think has actually been the biggest success that you've had in developing shared lives over the last 12 months? So you may have been doing lots of different things. You may have just been doing one thing. But I'm keen to know where you feel like the best areas of success have been. And again, you can pick as many options as you want there on the screen. So the answers or options to select are very similar to last time, just in terms of establishing a new scheme, developing a clear strategic vision. You've actually secured additional investment to grow. You've built enhanced ways of working with key partners. You really feel like you've increased social care workers' understanding and awareness of shared lives. You've actively improved the practices of your processes of your scheme. You've managed to improve the offer for your shared lives carers, or you've successfully recruited shared lives carers throughout the last year. So I'll just give colleagues a moment again to complete that. Put in your answers. And interestingly, I think the two highest responses on this one are around increasing social care professionals' understanding and awareness. And the highest is around improving the practices and processes of your scheme. So that's really interesting that those have been your areas of success that you feel from this year. I'm just going to end that poll there, briefly share the results so that you can see yourself. Quite a lot focused around, I guess, working with social care professionals, trying to generate those good quality referrals into the scheme. And in terms of, well, 42% of you that submitted a response said that you successfully recruited shared lives carers. So we're really pleased to hear that, which is fantastic. So brilliant. Okay, I'll stop sharing that. Now, finally, I just wanted to share a little bit of learning from the Accelerating Reform Fund that I mentioned this year. So for those that aren't aware of what the Accelerating Reform Fund is, so as I said, this is a Department for Health and Social Care funded opportunity where they provided grants to local authorities within England to spend on innovation projects and scaling innovation projects. But the idea being that they would work across their local integrated care systems. So it was kind of collaborations of local authorities across local areas working together around particular innovation scaling. Really excitingly, 27 of those integrated care systems across England through shared lives is something that they wanted to prioritise and spend this funding on. So there's been a lots of work and kind of focus and investment on shared lives this year throughout England because of that fund, which is really exciting. And projects have really ranged in terms of what that's been focused on. A lot of what were in those options of that pool. So a lot of areas focusing on kind of shared lives care recruitment, growing awareness, but others looking at kind of all sorts of different aspects of growing and developing shared lives too. So as I said, some of that investment led to the recruitment of staff within the scheme. It led to the building of the profile of shared lives within a local area. It led to kind of more digitization for the shared life scheme there, or kind of a better digital link between the scheme and wider social care operations. It also looked at shared lives care recruitment, as I mentioned, and looking to support to kind of grow and develop and diversify that shared lives offer to support more people with different care and support needs, maybe at different points in their lives. And other areas such as developing a really clear strategic focus, developing business cases for capacity building and future investment in the scheme to help it to continue to grow beyond the fund period, and in terms of increased co-production and improving social workers' knowledge and awareness. Some of the things that we kind of picked up from our involvement within the Accelerating Reform funded projects this year. So Shared Lives Plus worked with about 13 of those ICS areas to help them with their Shared Lives project. And we picked up quite some interesting kind of themes, learning some of that. There's still quite a lot of misconception around the Shared Lives model, that actually scheme capacity and skills, mostly around capacity, is a real challenge, I think, for a lot of areas where they need more capacity within teams to support the development. But it from a skills perspective, it might be kind of lacking around certain areas, like such as recruitment or in terms of marketing skills, which are quite helpful in terms of developing shared lives. There's still, I think, quite a lot to do in terms of working across multi-agencies within the local areas to secure buy-in and kind of development of shared lives, as well as down kind of vertically through frontline staff and managers and practice operational teams as well. And I think that, as I said, so projects have started at quite different points throughout this last year. Some are coming to an end, some are only kind of getting off the ground now. So I think there's a lot of further learning to come from this Accelerating Reform funded grant period, and the impact in terms of shared lives development across England it will probably also be staggered for that reason as well. So again, I think we'll start to see some impact of that over the next 12 to 24 months. But there's still a need for kind of clear growth plans within local areas, still a need to keep kind of elevating that profile of shared lives. But there does seem to be a real interest from leaders and commissioners across every local area that we've worked in to grow and expand shared lives, which is really, really positive as well. So, as I said, we've got some colleagues from Doncaster and from Birmingham who are going to be sharing some examples of their experience with the ARF. But just before that, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Sophie, who's going to talk through some work that she's been working with Portsmouth City Council on as part of their Accelerating Reform Fund this year.
Yeah, so this is so basically we were working on a few different areas with Portsmouth as part of their ARF funded project. But one area was around young people leaving care. And Rachel, who I'm sure those of you have met, who's running the Care Leavers programme, has been doing a lot of work with Portsmouth around this. So has kind of started as kind of going into Portsmouth, looking at their current guidance and what that currently looks like, carrying out interviews across Portsmouth with different teams, and then just really starting to kind of map out that kind of like ideal pathway. And these have kind of like transpired into like having different sessions, like follow-up sessions with the Shared Lives team and teams in children's social care, such as fostering and children in care. And what it's really like helped to do is just kind of like really kind of collaboratively like build that pathway across those two areas. And also like just really generally build that awareness. So it's kind of like built this kind of joint action plan where everyone's kind of working on different areas, kind of really thinking like how can we improve these processes, or how can we build processes where there aren't currently any in place. But also alongside this, Rachel has kind of built some supporting resources like awareness raising presentations for social care workers, and like FAQ documents, and also just generally kind of building out that kind of pathway map. So it's kind of, we're kind of like the kind of tail end of it at the moment. But yeah, it's been really positive to see just like that real kind of like building it up from what was there before to now, like just having like kind of much stronger relationships and a kind of action plan for moving forward, really. So yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sophie. Yeah, and I think, as I said earlier, this developing shared lives to support young people leaving care is such a kind of growing area for shared lives development right across the country this year. So many areas are kind of interested in exploring this. And it's going to be great to see some of the long-term gains and kind of benefits that come from some of the work that's been going on in this space this year, such as in Portsmouth as well. Brilliant, thank you. So I'm now going to hand over to colleagues from Doncaster. So as I said at the beginning, we've got Gareth Bishop and Amy Rutherford from Doncaster Council, and we have Tom Pick, who's from the Avalon Group, who are the independent commissioned provision within the Doncaster area, and they're going to talk to you all a little bit about their experiences of developing shared lives, and particularly in the last year around their work on that's been funded by the Accelerating Reform Fund as well. So Gareth, I think I'm handing over to you first. Is that right?
Yeah, thank you. You could just leave that page, Susie. Hi, everybody. I know you've been talked to quite a long time, but we find this very exciting. The Area Regional Fund, the Accelerating Reform Fund, has funded development for us right across South Yorkshire. So we worked in partnership with all South Yorkshire authorities, and we had 4 key areas that we looked at. We looked at recruitment, we looked at referrals, we looked at future options, and we looked at transitions. And it's meant we've been able to share South Yorkshire-wide the best practice that we've got currently, the difficulties we've got currently. And for us, looking at our local offer, which Amy and Tom are going to talk about, how we could work with our commission service on developing the commissioned offer that we've got. We use the Area Regional Fund for finance to recruit Amy to work with Avalon in developing the service, and myself. So it released time that we could concentrate just on shared lives. And we've had full engagement strategically, which has been brilliant, from direct to right down. We've had a couple of away days, which my colleagues are going to speak about in far more detail. So it's been very beneficial for us, the Area Regional Fund. It refocused us. We had an existing contract with Avalon, and it's meant that we can work together with them to develop the service. And my colleagues, I will pass on to my colleagues now, who will talk about how we've developed the local offer, what we've been doing, and how we've worked South Yorkshire wide. But just to finish, we will be staying South Yorkshire wide as a forum. We found that very, very beneficial, and we're going to meet quarterly, face to face, throughout the years, over the next 2 or 3 years, to make sure that we've maintained that best practice throughout South Yorkshire and shared ideas. I'll now pass you across to Amy and Tom.
Hi everyone. So the first thing, what we've learned from working South Yorkshire wide, which Gareth just touched on, is that we've got improved networks. By meeting together, we feel that we've got a real group ethos of that we can all lean upon each other, learn from one another. So I'm fairly new to this role. Gareth created this role back in December, so I've only been in post since then. But other local authorities have been established for quite a while, so we've been out to other authorities and visited them to see how their shared life structure works and what we can learn from them. Like Gareth just said, we are going to continue working as authorities together because we feel that that's really beneficial, especially in person, because it's just easier to be more relatable, personable. You get to hear a lot more things that are happening and be part of something. And I think just by making those networks and connections, it leads to future relationship building. And we've already had colleagues contact other authorities, contact here in Doncaster, from Sheffield. So we are making lots of links that way. And then we're going to focus on strengthened targeted advertising with the insight that we've had from other colleagues about what hasn't worked well, to create a new South Yorkshire wide advertising campaign. Next slide, sorry, Susie. So what we've done so far working in co-production is we've held a Doncaster away day. This was fantastic. We received great feedback from colleagues within Doncaster, especially the area teams, and it really did open up those channels, and a lot of people came along and they were able to understand a little bit more about shared lives. A lot of people weren't even aware what shared lives was, so we are doing a lot of work at the moment in campaigning to what shared lives is to the public. For example, as part of Shared Lives Week, we've got Avalon down in our civic office today, who are hopefully, as we speak, attracting a lot of people to come on board to hopefully become carers. We've made lots of team links with the transition service, the ICB, veterans and area teams. Just to note as well, we have just recently employed a carer who's got veterans experience, which we haven't had before, so that's really fantastic for Doncaster. We are doing a lot of work with Avalon on recruitment and exploring other available opportunities that we have, and looking at where there's gaps in the market and how we can get out there. We are going to be working with our communities teams as well, who visit various areas within Doncaster, and see if we can do some pop-ups to gain footfall from residents in Doncaster. And then we have got some good news as well. So we've expanded within the market, and the Avalon are now on our Children's Commissioning 16+ service. As a result of the away day, our commission service came along and they met with our commissioners, and they had lots of conversations there. And also Gareth and the team have been out and made visits to schools in Doncaster. And they're also attending our Festival of Practice event, and there'll be future ones of those that are arranged where they'll be coming along. And then we've got something that's real niche and beneficial that we believe no other service has done before, which is bespoke advertising for targeted recruitment, which is focused specifically on the individual. I'm just going to hand over to Gareth here because he's got lots of experience there. It's his project.
So one of the things that we looked at with the ARF was advertising, and we found that and we worked with Tom. Tom will probably discuss it as well. We've been in a situation where the advertising, we were fitting people into the current Shared Lives offer, and we couldn't see any reason why we couldn't advertise bespoke. So the individual was co-producing the adverts, co-producing what needs they've got, co-producing the job description, so they could co-produce and advertise for their own Shared Lives carer. We've now got 3 of those adverts completed. One with learning disability, 2 with learning disabilities, and 1 with mental health. So we're advertising specifically. Nobody's in crisis, so we're not in a rush to recruit, and we're able to spend that time looking at the recruitment and recruiting to those individuals, which I think's very beneficial. And the Shared Lives applicant knows which individual they're going to be working with, who they're going to be working with, and they can build that relationship up. It ties in with some of the work that we do with short breaks, because those individuals are often in our short break service, so they can build relationships before they even invite somebody into the home. So it's been working very successfully, that, and we're quite very proud of that bespoke advertising. And as we said, we don't know whether anybody else is doing it. I'll now pass you on to the next slide, which was Tom from Avalon.
Hi everyone. So yeah, I think when Susie was earlier talking about the sort of the 3 different stages that a Shared Lives project is at, I think a year ago, if we were honest, our service at Avalon was in a good place. We were providing a good service, but to a set number of people. And what the R funding has done and what our relationship with Gareth has done is really give us an appetite to grow the service, make it more relevant, and mean that we can share the positives of it with a lot more people. So Liam isn't with us today. He's at the Civic Centre selling shared lives. But one of the first things that we have done is we've taken it away from our general registrations, and we've got our own registered manager now for shared lives, who's really driving it and focusing it. And I can't speak highly enough, but what that's done for us within the organisation has given shared lives a real focus, and it's allowed us to have the time and the energy to make the growth and to put the growth in place. Obviously, we're upskilling our carers. We're wanting to diversify our options and the people that we're working with, and the consequence of that is that we need to invest in the carers. And we're doing that through our own training, through involving carers in our induction, changing our induction to suit more shared lives as well. We have an internal organisation called Avalink, which is led by the people we support and feeds back to our services. We're integrating shared lives into that much more and giving a much bigger voice to shared people who are supported by shared lives. And we're also working with Doncaster and the learning development team there. The targeted recruitment campaigns are working really well. We've also put together some short videos of people already, carers and people who are being cared for already in the service. And we've been utilising Facebook and all of the skills and abilities that you have through Facebook to reach out and meet new people, which is really important. One thing that we're very proud of, and that Doncaster have fed back and said that they're finding certainly very useful, is that we've introduced health and emergency shared lives carers. So we have a group of carers who are very, very skilled, very experienced, and have the willingness and the ability to take people on a short-term basis if needed, or sometimes a short-term basis that may develop into a longer-term service. And anyone on here who's worked in social care for the number of years I have will have received many a phone call at 4 o'clock on an afternoon from a social worker desperately trying to help somebody who's in crisis. We can't help all of those people, and it isn't appropriate for us to help all of those people. But where we can provide a service for somebody like that, we do. And that stopped people having to go out of Doncaster into residential care, has given them a period of stability and has led to some real success. So that's working really well for us. And I can't mention enough, partnering with the local teams has been very useful. And having a really close link with Amy and Gareth has really given us a way to negotiate around the council, get into conversations and start some of the positive work. Have the next slide, please. I don't know if I can click it on or not. So yeah, we've been strengthening those relationships. Consistent and open communication is really good. We're working together very closely, but we are two separate organisations, and we're very careful to make sure that our relationship is good and that we're talking the same language. Obviously, we attend our contract monitoring meetings, but we also meet with social workers whenever we can. And Gareth and Amy are very good at getting us invites, but we're now getting our own invites to meetings and let people know what we're doing and what we can do. Something we're working on, but we're not quite where we want to be yet, is the data tracking and looking at the reporting and the rich information we can get out of shared lives and out of Facebook and the amount of people that click on our posts, etc. And just acknowledging that world and learning from it so that we can improve what we're doing. We talked a little bit earlier about working as a group in South Yorkshire. We have a very good and very successful scheme just over the county line in Rotherham. And I had a fantastic meeting with them a couple of weeks ago where we learnt about what they're doing and how they're integrating into the community. And again, we're going to incorporate that into our model in Doncaster as well. And we used the R funding to host a joint away day, which was really useful, both for focusing what we were doing and linking in. But the key part for that is that the strategic leadership from Doncaster Council attended and spoke at the event and really helped focus people's minds onto shared lives. And if I could have my last slide, please, that'd be grand. Thank you very much. So yeah, we talked about designed values-based, interesting marketing that we're doing. Again, Liam's a bit of a whiz at that, and the other guys are. But we've been doing that. And another thing that we've been trying to do as we've been looking to improve our service and make it better is looking where we can streamline processes to make things easier for carers who want to apply, and that means that we can see more carers. So we look at our adverts, we think very carefully about the wording, what information we ask for people, and we learn from it and we amend it. We've also looked to streamline our application process and our panel process, because whilst we want people, we definitely need people to take their time and be considered and do a successful application and panel process. What we don't want to do is have people waiting around and perhaps decide to go on and do something else. So we move as quickly as possible, and we're very proud that we can go from application to a panel in about 6 weeks, which is we're really pleased with. Again, we're going back over, but we have leveraged social media as much as possible. We are using data. We're open to using AI to analyze that data wherever we can, because it's much better at maths than I am. And the final piece of work that we're doing, that again, Liam is a really key lead on, is looking at implementing, or we're in the process of implementing, charms into our system. So that will be a bespoke electronic system that will allow us to manage our carers, allow us to communicate with our carers, and allow them to communicate with us. And again, that should give us richer data and more information. And we need to do that. We need to make things as easy as possible for ourselves, because we've got really ambitious growth targets, and we want to be busy, and we want to work with as many people as possible.
Just like to add one thing on charms, Susie, as well. What for other authorities, what charms does give us the opportunity. I know under the ARF we're looking at a matching tool that Shared Lives Plus are looking into. Charms currently has that matching process, so Avalon have been will be using that matching process currently till we work with Susie on the other matching process. But it gives us a matching process so workers can put the information in, and it gives us a matching process from a match of say 10% to 100% for the individuals, and we're hoping that workers will have access to that in the next 5 months. So although it increases the efficiency to work with the current carers, it also increases the efficiency for matching. So we can go through a matching process. So Tom will download all his vacancies onto that, and then workers can access that vacancy and put the matching tool in. So that hopefully that will ease off the telephone calls, etc., and inquiries about matching processes.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. That's a really, really interesting presentation. I think you'll all agree, and it's amazing to see actually how much you've done as a local area in the last 12 months, and all the different aspects of shared lives development that you've been focusing on, and you're really doing some innovative and inspiring stuff, which is fantastic. And I'm sure colleagues on the call or who listen to this afterwards will end up reaching out to you to find out a little bit more. I think we've got a question or two that's come into the chat. We'll come towards them at the end. But if you do have any other questions for Amy, Gareth, or Tom, then please do pop them in the chat, and we can pick them up towards the end of the session.
Susie, just one thing to add, because we've Avalon have registered with the 16 plus, etc. It's meant we've been able to actually include everything in the preparation for adulthood, which gives us the information for preparation from 14 upwards. So we know the demographics that are coming through, we know the level of disability that's coming through. So it's meant that we're fully centered in the preparation for adulthood and the Better Lives Huddle programs that we've got, so we can plan for the future, and we've got access to that information. So joining that 16 plus bit and the transitions bit was quite important. It's looking at future placements, and we need to do that. What you were discussing, Susie, we need to do that at the other end with dementia care now and adult social care. So we've got the 14 up, we've got that information. We now need to look at dementia care when we're future proof.
Yeah. So it's really helped with kind of embedding or stabilizing that kind of partnership working between colleagues and children's teams, and now you're wanting to do the same towards the older adult part of operations as well, which has been fantastic. That's brilliant. Thank you so much, colleagues. That's great.
Thank you.
Okay, now I'm going to pass over to Wayne Seaman, who's from Birmingham City Council, who's going to talk to us about his experience working in the council this year on their Accelerating Reform funded Shared Lives growth project as well. Over to you, Wayne.
Hey, hello everybody. I'm going to try and make this as brief as possible for you all. And it was a little bit intimidating following that presentation because that was incredibly impressive. So I am going to jump in. I'll start with Birmingham's vision for shared lives, moving on to our recruitment success over the last year, and I'll lead into what we're developing for shared lives and what we've learned along the way. Just to say, my colleagues, Emma, who is our service manager, and Phil, who is our participation and co-production officer, would have loved to have been here today, but they're taking some sort of long-deserved annual leave. So it's just me, which is unfortunate for you because I'm the least engaging and also the one that's most likely to trip up over their words. But getting started, our vision for Shared Lives is to expand it across Birmingham with stronger senior level support and long-term commitment. The ARF has been a catalyst in helping us turn that vision into action because it's given us the time and resource to look at what we're doing. Looking at recruitment success, over the past year, we've seen some actual real progress. We've recruited 27 new carers. We've had 13 long-term placements and additional respite support in place. Our matching process has developed and is now much more efficient and thoughtful, typically taking between 8 and 12 weeks to match a new citizen to a carer. And we're proud at the moment to be able to say that we're supporting 117 citizens in long-term support. In long-term placement, sorry. With the funding and support we've received, we've been able to dedicate resource to looking at our processes and working out how we can improve it going forward. We've taken a fresh approach to recruitment, offering things like application support sessions, group assessments, and peer-to-peer support, trying to sort of develop and build a genuine community between the carers that they can take from application into sort of their caring careers. So moving on to enabling transformation. So as part of the ARF, we've been working in collaboration with Solihull, and that's initially helped us to secure the funding. And it's enabled us to expand our team significantly. So we brought in additional Shared Lives workers, a dedicated participation and co-production officer in Phil, and a communications and engagement officer in myself. We've also improved visibility through promotional materials and by attending events in high footfall targeted areas, which Shared Lives Plus helped us identify. A key milestone has been the introduction of our own branding, which you'll see on the next slide. Beyond our team, we've accessed resources from the local authority teams, enhancing our capacity. One practical outcome, as well as the introduction of the Charms app, which Doncaster has previously spoke about, and that will centralize key requirements and training, making it easier for our carers to stay informed and compliant. So slide 6 is about communications and branding. Thank you. The ARF fund, oh, I think the text is missing, but that's okay. The ARF funding has enabled us to gather research with a lot of assistance from Shared Lives Plus on how to better communicate with our city and its communities. This research identified 3 key cohorts, which has allowed us to tailor our communications to be more effective. On the right are some of the examples of the newly designed marcons and promotional equipment, which we're quite proud of, and we hope makes us much more visible and recognizable in Birmingham. One challenge we did have is that we don't have access to our own social media channels, simply because we sit under the umbrella of Birmingham Council's social media team, but they've been great in assisting us with sort of targeted social media posts, one of which went out today regarding Shared Lives Week. Okay, moving on to slide 7, which is building relationships. We've worked closely with Shared Lives Plus and our social work teams to strengthen our relationships and outreach. This includes recruiting social worker champions, launching online referrals, and hosting drop-in sessions for social workers. We're currently working with children's services and the job centres across Birmingham to make Shared Lives an option for people who are looking for employment across Birmingham. A key learning from this has been the importance of persistence and relationship building in creating lasting engagement. Simply because it's not that we haven't tried these things in the past, it's that we maybe didn't speak to the right person, and in being persistent in that, we've been able to open these doors at this time around. Slide 8 is co-production development. So that is my colleague Phil's area. We've developed a strategy for inclusive participation and created this shared experience group. It's currently being launched, but the goal is that we have the voices of our people at the heart of everything we produce going forward. To bring engagement closer to people's everyday lives, we've launched our co-production roadshows, where we have visited and will continue to visit community venues like libraries. We've been in parks, cafes, to promote inclusivity and accessibility, whilst ensuring we're very visible in the key areas that Shared Lives Plus was able to help us identify. Okay, slide 9 is something we're actually particularly proud of. It's our participation with a large housing provider, and it's been a key part of our outreach and co-production effort. So that's something that Phil and Emma have really sort of been looking after, but together with the housing provider, they've co-designed initiatives that serve dual purposes. So recruiting shared lives carers is our purpose, and supporting their tenants into employment is their purpose. The collaboration has allowed us to reach a new audience and offer meaningful opportunities to people who haven't maybe known about shared lives and certainly haven't considered it in the past. Once the partnership is fully established, we intend to launch roadshows and follow-up sessions with the intention of sharing sort of lived experiences through that process. And our learning and growth so far within the past sort of few months of the ARF funding is that we've gained valuable insight. It's become apparent how openness and persistence and communicating a mutual benefit to our internal teams, to people like children's services, to people like housing, to job centres, how that is key really to better outcomes and working together. Because as I say, it's not that we didn't explore these in the past, it's that we didn't necessarily know the right person and we didn't persist with it. Now we're doing that, we are seeing those doors open. Looking ahead, we're focused on sustainability. So we're trying to develop a post-ARF model that ensures Shared Lives continues to grow and deliver impact. It's a kind of invest to save approach, and it is designed to maintain momentum beyond the ARF funding. Whilst continued funding would be great and would help us grow, we're trying to, certainly me and myself and Phil are looking at it from this perspective, but we're trying to enable it to continue momentum without us being there, to develop a structure where it can continue to do that. So that's what we've been looking at over the sort of past year. The closing slide is just our contact information. As I say, apologies from the rest of the team who weren't able to be here. So I've kind of had to top level present some of their work. But if you do have questions, send it to the mailbox and we'll certainly look for an answer and get back to you as quickly as possible. I realise I've really just talked at you for a period there, but
no, it's fantastic, Wayne. Thank you so much. I think colleagues will agree it was a really interesting presentation, and again, you know, you've been working on developing shared lives in lots of different areas in terms of your approach to recruitment, but also in terms of co-production and that partnership working in development as well, which has all been keen. So really, really interesting. Thank you. If anyone does have any questions for Wayne, then please do stick them in the chat as well, or get in touch with him through the information on the screen there, which we'll share the slides after today's presentation, of course, as well. Just before we move on to pick up any questions, I just have one final poll, if you'll indulge me. And again, this is really thinking about actually what you're going to be focusing on in terms of shared lives development over the next 12 months. So we've got a bit of a sense of what you've been working on, what's been your success, but now we're really keen to understand, right, what's going to be your area of focus over the next 12 months. Just launch that pool now. Again, similar response options as before. We're just keen to understand what it is you'll be looking at and where you'll be focusing on. And Sophie, whilst colleagues complete that poll, if you could pull out any questions if there are any, and we can pick those up before we close off in the session. So just seeing responses coming in to that poll now. So I'll just wait till a few more come in as it's changing. So I think, again, unsurprisingly, one of the key areas is around shared lives care recruitment, but we also have a lot in terms of partnership working, in terms of trying to secure additional investment to grow, increasing social workers' understanding, and in terms of scheme processes and practices and the offer for shared lives carers. So there's quite a lot of different areas that are being looked at. No one particular, I think, that kind of stands out aside from shared lives care recruitment, but that's a kind of, as I said, a bit of a given when it comes to shared lives development as well. Brilliant. Okay, I'll just end that poll there and share results. Just so people can have a look. So Sophie, have we got any questions for anyone on the panel today that we can run through?
Yeah, sorry, I've just popped these in the chat again. So there was one for Tom with around the emergency shared lives carers about how do you manage the ranging workload for that?
Sure. So I think the really important part with that is that we very much pitch ourselves, and we're a cog in the machine, if that makes sense, for an emergency placement. So Gareth, for example, runs the respite services across the council, so might be involved in the same calls. And what we do is we help where we can. So if a referral comes through, we absolutely try our very hardest to manage that referral and find the right person. But what we don't do is say yes to every referral and accept every referral. It's very specialist work. Within our Doncaster office, we also have a team of supported living support workers and managers. So sometimes it's a little bit of a team effort between the two services where we might bridge the gap for a few days. But it's essentially it's just having the attitude that somebody's in crisis, you want to help them. And so the team work really hard to do what we can do to make it work. And it's about 50% of the referrals that we get through, we manage to place somebody, and 50%, unfortunately, we have to say, no, we can't.
Oh,
Thank you, Tom.
Wayne, I think someone was asking if you could share your application form that you're currently using. I think it was Charlotte from Greenwich.
Our application form, yeah, certainly. I can share that, yes.
Thank you, Wayne. Great.
And then we got a question from Joe, who's about just best practice actually around in terms of care recruitment, and any resources around case studies. I mean, at Shared Lives Plus, we are like always gathering like best practice around recruitment. Just trying to think if we have anything currently on our website.
We have a few case examples that we can share a link to after today's webinar, of some local kind of case study examples of different things that have been tried, particularly through ARF projects this year, with a bit of investment kind of behind them as well. And obviously, if you are a Shared Lives Plus member, then there is information within our guidance and tools as well around recruitment too. So that's probably the go-to place to go to at the moment, but do reach out to us if you're interested in any more support in that area as well. We'd be happy to chat to you.
Susie, just to come in there as well, we've also got specifically, because it mentions the person mentions case studies, our communications team, Lorna, is actually going to be doing a workshop on the Wednesday, the 16th of July, on how to write an effective case study. So there's only 40 places for that. So if you are interested in that, if you go on our Eventbrite page, that's specifically about that.
Brilliant. We'll add that to the list of links that we share following today's webinar as well. That's brilliant. Fantastic. I think the only other question I saw in there was around whether there was similar funding available to other nations, that in the same way that the Accelerating Reform Fund has been provided to England. So just to respond to that, and that there's not anything currently of that sort of scale reform that we're aware of, but we're very much trying to kind of capture and highlight kind of what have been some of the key benefits and impact of the Accelerating Reform Fund on shared lives this year in England, so that we can kind of show that actually upfront investment like that can really make a real difference in the other nations as well. So that's definitely something that we'll be capturing and talking about more in the year to come. as well.
There was a question about charms in the chat as well.
Oh.
And Wayne may be a little bit further ahead than we are, but I'll put my email address in the chat, and if anybody wants an introduction to Kelly, who does our charm stuff, I'm sure she'll have a chat with you and talk to you about it. So I'll stick it in now. Same
with us. I don't really have an oversight of charms at the moment. It's looked after by our service manager, Emma, but her email address is up there and she's happy to answer any questions regarding it.
Thanks, Wayne. Thanks, Tom. That's really fantastic. I'm sure very helpful for colleagues. I know there's a lot of areas that are looking at different case management systems for their scheme at the moment. So I'm sure that's really helpful for them. Brilliant. Okay, well, I think that's all of our questions that I could see coming into the chat. Do get in touch with us at the Strategic Advice and Development team if you do have any other questions or inquiries for us around Shared Lives development or about anything that we've talked through today as part of our webinar. But we will be publishing and sharing this recording of this webinar as well for people that may have missed it, and publishing that on our website, as well as any key links as well. So I think that just leaves me to say thank you so much for all my fellow panelists who've come along and talked through their experiences this year. It's been really, really fantastic to hear about those examples and to hear about some of the innovative work that's been going on. So thank you, and thank you to everyone for joining today's webinar. And please do sign up to the others that are happening this week as well. And happy Shared Lives Week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.